L'ordine del giorno reca la dichiarazione del Consiglio e della Commissione sulla preparazione delle riunioni del Consiglio europeo del 21 e del 22 e il recesso del Regno Unito dall'Unione Europea. Ha la parola.
The first speaker, Gabriela Schott, for the Council.
Honourable members, Vice President, Chief Negotiator, the European Council will hold important discussions on a number of strategic challenges and opportunities facing the Union. Let me start with the economy. Leaders will discuss the current economic situation and will set priorities for the 2019 European semester. The European Council will also endorse the euro area recommendation. Europe, as the rest of the world, faces the systemic changes brought about by such issues as the digital transformation, the rise of the data economy, or indeed the transition to a greener economy. Harnessing these opportunities will be key to our future prosperity. To strengthen our economic base, we need to make sure that our different policies, whether digital, industrial, single market or trade policies, are mobilised in unison to meet these challenges and advance the strategic interests of the Union. The European Council will hold a cross-cutting and forward-looking discussion on the issue. Another critical issue is climate change, which we have just discussed in this session. As was noted in this debate, we as a Union need to help raise global ambition and continue to lead the way on climate action. This means implementing the current 2030 framework, but also engaging in the long-term transition to a climate-friendly future. We know that we need to provide the right incentive for this transformation, and we will have to make sure that we leave no one behind, taking into account regional specificities and different socio-economic circumstances. The European Council will discuss the issue and provide guidance for further work in the Council. China is a key global player in all these issues. Leaders will have an in-depth exchange of views on our relations with China in preparation for the upcoming EU-China summit. Finally, a cornerstone of our democracies is that citizens should be able to vote in a well-informed and safe manner. Ahead of the European elections, the Presidency will report on the latest developments to protect the democratic process from manipulation and interference from inside and outside the EU. Leaders will also be informed of ongoing efforts to tackle disinformation more broadly, following the joint action plan presented last December by the Commission and the High Representative. Next week, the European Council will, of course, also meet in its Article 50 format to discuss the latest developments regarding Brexit. President, honourable members, to be or not to be a member of the European Union, to exist or not to exist, this is the question that the British Parliament should address as we speak. Unfortunately, we are not dealing with theatre, but with the real lives and jobs of EU and UK citizens. At this very late stage, we are still determined to facilitate the conclusions of the withdrawal agreement provisionally agreed last year. However, this should not be the detriment of the solidarity among member states, especially as regards Ireland. To be frank, given the additional assurances we provided in December, January and on Monday, it is difficult to see what more we can do. Within the limits of our principles and positions, notably as regards citizens' rights and the Irish backstop, we nevertheless remain open to talks and clarifications if this can help the ratification process in the UK. These clarifications should not, however, contradict the very intention of the backstop, but only confirm that indeed it is intended to be a temporary nature. On the EU side, we are as advanced as possible regarding the conclusion of the withdrawal agreement, on which I understand the consent of the EP could be given in a matter of days, should all the clarity needed on the UK side be provided. It is, however, very likely that even if the British Parliament were to vote in favour of the withdrawal agreement in the coming days, this would have to be accompanied by a request for a technical time-limited extension. This would mean amending the agreement, and possible delaying the consent process at this extension would have to be agreed by the coming European Council. When considering such a request, we would expect a credible justification for a possible extension and its duration. However, I am confident that our institutions will be able to complete this process in a good time and, consequently, ensure a timely entry into force of the agreement. As I said before, we remain open for talks as long as there is an end in sight and a purpose in these talks, which mean that the UK government and the British Parliament have to come out with a clear sense of direction as to where there is a majority and timing as to when it will materialise. In the meantime, the only certainty we have is an increased uncertainty for citizens and for businesses, with an already clear economic impact in terms of level of activity, investment, and more importantly, jobs. It is therefore all the more necessary to continue our preparations for all outcomes, including a no-deal scenario. In this context, the Council and the Member States at national level are intensifying their work on preparedness and contingency, building on the solid work already underway. I am very much encouraged by the large number of contingency and preparedness-related measures that our institutions have been able to agree on in spite of the heavy workload at this late stage of the legislature. The Presidency is confident that, with your cooperation, it will be possible to complete the adoption of the remaining contingency measures in due course, but hoping at the same time that they won't be needed. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Schott. And now the first President of the Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Timmermans. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So here we are. After another vote in the House of Commons, the withdrawal agreement has been voted down. Regardless of the extra clarifications being given, regardless of the tremendous effort by Michel Barnier and Jean-Claude Juncker to help Theresa May clarify the issues, still the withdrawal agreement was voted down. So again, today, we will be waiting for the next vote in the House of Commons, because the only ones who can give us any direction of where we need to go from now are the members of Parliament in the United Kingdom, in the House of Commons. And I believe this House and the European Commission remain on the same line, to do as little harm as possible to Europeans, whether they live in the United Kingdom or on the continent. This is our duty, to think about our citizens, to think about our enterprises, to think about our interests broadly on both sides of the Channel. And I say this because what we've tried to do, mainly Michel has tried to do, is to make sure that the red lines put on the table by the British government and the need for us to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland and to maintain the integrity of the internal market are brought together. And I don't see any better solution than the withdrawal agreement with all the clarifications given. So now, this is where we are. Of course, we will remain in this position to want to do as little harm as possible in a very harmful process, because Brexit is very harmful to the United Kingdom and to the European Union. But it is our duty, on the basis of a vote of the British people, to work towards a Brexit that does as little harm as possible. This position will not change. But today we are in the hands of the British political system. They should tell us where they want to go from now. The solution will have to come from London, and we'll take it from there. And of course, there are many other issues Europe has to deal with in the next couple of years, and that's why the European Council also focuses on other issues. Industrial policy. Our industry is strong, and it's the engine of our economy. It employs 32 million people and directly accounts for more than 2/3 of our exports. It is one of the main reasons we have partners lining up at our door to secure free and fair trade agreements. But we must do more. We want to see strong European companies bolstered by fair competition at home, leading in the world and addressing major challenges such as climate change. In particular, we urge Member States to make the most of major common European projects that matter to all of us, for instance in strategic areas such as next generation batteries to store clean energy or the work on artificial intelligence. Most importantly, we want to make sure that as industry and technologies develop, we continue to defend our values. Because ultimately, we do all of this in the interest and the well-being of all Europeans. That's why we propose work-life balance, equal pay for equal work in the same place, and the European Labour Authority, to name but a few. It is all part and parcel of our consistent efforts to make our single market of 500 million informed consumers and thriving businesses deeper and fairer. And it's high time to deliver on all its dimensions, particularly in services, digital, energy and also, importantly, the Capital Markets Union. Ce Conseil européen sera aussi l'occasion de parler de notre...
This European Council is also an opportunity to speak about our relations with China a few days away from the summit with them. In a number of different political fields, is a cooperation partner, a negotiation partner, an economic rival, and also a system rival, putting forward different forms of governance. And a number of times they have said that they do want to contribute to a future that will be one of more open globalization, more inclusive globalization. For its part, the European Union is one of the most open economies in the world. But we strongly defend multilateralism on the basis of values for all and of rules that do need to be fair for all as well, without being a naive adherent to free trade. But that is why we have suggested putting in place an international instrument on public markets for the procurement to have access to that around the world, and to ensure that between the European Union and China there is more confidence, more cooperation, more reciprocity, so that our investors and our companies benefit in China from the same open conditions as those which are opened to Chinese investors here in Europe. Unfortunately, today that is not the case. And it goes without saying that we do have the duty to defend our values, our strategic interests, to protect our industries, our workers and our citizens against any unfair competition. And that is why we have established a new framework to filter foreign investment so that we can preserve our strategic interests here in Europe. And I would like to congratulate the European Parliament for its excellent work and in adopting this initiative in record time. And it is clear also that it is in our interest not only to improve the multilateral system that already agrees in particular on aid and state subsidies. China also has to shoulder its responsibilities in that field.
Real sovereignty can be demonstrated by the European Union in the climate change debate as well. We can have a big zero emissions economy. Taking those targets on board means looking at the multi-annual financial framework and devoting a large part of that to combating climate change. We have got to invest in renewable energies and not take away anyone's livelihood. It's possible to reduce emissions and at the same time to be innovative and create high-value jobs. I'd like to thank this House for its support for sustainable investment, which we are proud of, those proposals. We are giving the lead worldwide when it comes to encouraging and redirecting private investment to achieve the Paris Accord objectives for a climate neutral environmental fund. Young people are taking to the streets. They want a higher level of ambition. And this is really where Europe can step in, one which can inspire people with courage for the future. I'd like to thank Greta Thunberg and all the others for that inspiration which they have given us.
Mut brauchen wir auch.
This is one of the biggest challenges for our democracies. There are conscious attempts to manipulate our debate and the public discourse. Our message is that Europe remains open for business. Diversity of opinion is our greatest good, but we are not naive. We are conscious that there are forces which threaten and disrupt our democracies. And on the election campaign, that's going to be a major challenge, and we will have to be very vigilant. Therefore, I welcome the fact that the European Parliament and the Member States are supporting the Commission's measures to fight against disinformation and meddling in our election processes. However, this is just the beginning and much remains to be done. Because we have sovereignty in the Union, but only if we are ruthless in defending our prerogatives, both inside and outside of this Union of ours. Thank you, President.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Premier vice-président de la Commission européenne. Maintenant, je donne tout de suite la...
Thank you very much to the Vice President, first Vice President of the European Commission. I give the floor now to the Chief Brexit Negotiator, Mr. Barnier.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, President. And good morning to everybody. This is a special morning and a serious one, too. Part of the very long negotiation process. My first words, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, are to say to you that on behalf of the team that I have the honour to lead with the trust of President Juncker, I would like to say that my thanks are very sincere and lasting for all the confidence that the Parliament has placed in me. I was saying earlier, the confidence of presidents, that this is not something that falls from heaven. It isn't invented, nor is it simply given as a blank check. It is a trust that is based on dialogue, on transparency. And from the very first day, this has been the case, and the trust will remain based on dialogue and on transparency. Yesterday evening's vote that Vice President Timmermans mentioned, and you did too, Minister, just prolongs and makes worse deep uncertainty that was created almost 3 years ago now by the sovereign decision of the UK that we do respect, even though we regret it. That was an uncertainty that, of course, affects the United Kingdom, in particular Northern Ireland, but that also affects us and all of our countries. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that the responsibility for the Brexit decision belongs solely to the United Kingdom. And today, our first responsibility to find a way out of the impasse that the negotiations are in, that responsibility lies fair and square with the United Kingdom, and that is what was said loud and strong by the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, yesterday after the vote. We have tried to find solutions together, solutions to each problem, and there are countless problems. Human ones, social ones. There are legal and technical problems. There are economic and financial problems created by Brexit. And to try to manage all of these different consequences in order to stay side by side with the United Kingdom in an ordered exit from the European Union. That's been our aim from the word go and is still our aim. And the objective of the EU has always been to reduce the level of uncertainty by ensuring that there is an ordered exit, and then thanks to that ordered and orderly exit, and thanks to the trust that we will build because of that orderly exit, that the time we will have to take to do what we need to. So that time will be between 21 months and 4 years for another negotiation. And I've always said that this is the most important one, besides Brexit and the exit. That is the most important one because it's about the future relations that we want to build with the UK, which, whatever the circumstances, will remain a country that is our friend, a country that is an ally, and a country that is a partner. So that is what we have done in our negotiations over several months with the government of the United Kingdom, with them and never against the government of the United Kingdom. A withdrawal agreement which is in the interest of citizens, of business and of all stakeholders on both sides of the Channel and on both sides of the Irish Sea. Let me just remind you of one point, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to remind you all of this. If the United Kingdom still wants to leave the European Union and want to do so in an orderly fashion, if that is still the intention of the United Kingdom, then this treaty, which we negotiated with the government of Theresa May for a year and a half, this treaty is and will remain the only available treaty. And I want everybody to understand that fully. And we, alongside this treaty, have done an awful lot of work with the UK government over the past few days to explain, to clarify, to guarantee things through documents that we have agreed on, that we agreed on here in the very Parliament on Monday evening, welcomed here as we were by Strasbourg. And Mrs. May said to us that she also wanted to publish a unilateral declaration. So what did happen Monday in that last round of discussions between the EU and the UK government? That was to provide the House of Commons and the UK Parliament with new assurances, new explanations, such as the temporary nature of the backstop. We went as far as we possibly could in order to help the UK government get the support of the House of Commons, with one concern always in the back of our minds that I expressed in your name also, is that we have to always maintain peace and stability on the island of Ireland. And we do have to respect in the Good Friday Agreement in every aspect of that agreement, the Belfast Agreement as it's also known. And also for us, the importance of maintaining, of keeping the integrity of our internal market, which is the internal market of our 28 countries at the moment, soon to be 27. That is to preserve the quality and the safety that consumers are owed for the goods that they consume. We have to have food security. We have to preserve against any animal feed problems. We have to look at customs rights, VAT, and we have to have protection and clarity and security for all businesses in all your countries. We have to ensure that we have got standards for all our goods. And I just want to say to you that in Ireland and with Ireland, it's not a question of theory or of dogma whether or not we will show flexibility. It is a very practical issue indeed that deals with peace in Ireland. That peace must be lasting, and it also deals with the protection of the single market. All goods, any living animal that goes into Northern Ireland after Brexit that comes from Great Britain could then go to Poland, to Slovenia, to Belgium, to Germany, to any one of our countries, because it is the single market and there will not be a border. So we do have to find a way, and that is what we will take the time to do, to ensure that these controls on the three aspects that I mentioned, that is consumers, the budget and businesses, that they are in place. And we do not want to recreate a hard border. So on yesterday's vote then, well, I see that there are some members of the House of Commons that want a second referendum, others want no deal, and these just run counter to all the legal assurances that we found in our discussions with Theresa May. But I think that these explanations and the guarantees are indeed significant, and we agreed them on Monday evening with the support of the UK government. President Juncker also said that there will be no further interpretations, no further assurances. We cannot go any further. So, to conclude, a word about what will be happening now. Where are we this morning, then? The Prime Minister announced a vote on no deal this evening and on the possible extension. These will take place in the House of Commons. After those votes, it will be up to the UK government to tell us what and how they intend to proceed, and we hope in a positive way so that they can eventually have a constructive majority on a proposal. And it is the responsibility of the United Kingdom. They have to tell us what it is they want for our future relations. What will their choice be? As you said, Madam Minister, what will be the clear line that they take? That is the question that we need an answer to now. That is the question that has to be answered before a decision really on a possible further extension. Why would we extend these discussions? Because the discussion on Article 50, that is done and dusted. We have the withdrawal agreement. It is there. And so that is the question asked, and we are waiting for the answer to that. So we are at a critical point. The risk of no deal has never been higher. That is the risk of an exit, even by accident, by the UK of the European Union in a disorderly fashion. And I urge you, please, not to underestimate that risk or its consequences. And in all seriousness, and we now call on all those players involved, the European Union. Mr. Juncker has mentioned that, all member states as well, thanks to the work to all presidencies, and yours in particular, Madam President. We are ready for this. We are preparing for this. It is not a scenario that we want. We have never worked for this particular option. We don't want a no deal, an absence of an agreement. We've never wanted that. We have always worked towards finding an agreement and an orderly exit. But we are ready. The EU is ready to face that situation if we have to. And I would just remind you that if there is no other agreement, if we cannot reach another agreement, simply the way the treaty works is that risk of no deal is what we are facing.
Sometimes, even this morning, are you disappointed after this vote? My answer, our answer, shall always remain the same. We remain respectful of the UK and its people. We remain determined, calm and united, and we will remain respectful, calm, determined and united until the end of this extraordinary negotiation. We shall defend the Union interests and that all of its citizens. That will remain the line of your negotiators. Thank you very much.